I want to use this podcast opportunity to go over with you the presentation assignment, which is going to be worth, it's a 15 to 20 minute assignment where you do a narrated PowerPoint presentation, and there are instructions for doing that here in this assignment. And it's worth 50 points, and it's going to be due at 10 p.m. on May 5th. So here is the presentation assignment guidelines, and I just want to go through these and maybe use a few examples here and there to where it will help illustrate what I'm looking for. The learning outcomes for this course emphasize that you are supposed to learn to apply ethical perspectives to correctional law. In other words, how do these perspectives pertain or relate to correctional law, and then also to analyze and critically evaluate legal issues utilizing those ethical perspectives. In other words, looking at those legal issues through the lens of those perspectives. So that's really what this assignment is all about. And you can see here the ethical perspectives that we have covered in this class. The first four, consequentialism through virtue theory, were covered during week 1. Number 5 there, covered during week 2. And then you see the areas of correctional law that we've covered in this class, and the weeks are indicated parenthetically out there to the side. So what we're looking for in this assignment, we want you to apply each of the 5 ethical perspectives here. So each one of these things here, where my cursor is, to each of these 5 areas here. So it's kind of a crisscross assignment. You're going to apply consequentialism, for instance, to one of these, to a legal issue or a piece of law in one of these areas. You're going to apply regularism to another one of these areas, deontology to another area, virtue theory to a 4th area, and then finally moral disengagement to a 5th area. But the catch with this, and so there's no confusion, the catch with this is that you have to use a different ethical perspective for a different area of law. In other words, you cover all 5 ethical perspectives, and you're going to cover all 5 legal areas in your presentation. You're going to apply each perspective to a different legal area. So that's what I was trying to say before. So if you apply consequentialism, let's say, to a key area, a key case or a key statute in Area 1 here, prisoner access to the courts, then Area 1 is used up. You won't be using it again, and you've got consequentialism done. So then maybe what you would do is take regularism and apply it to number 3, deontology and apply it to number 2, virtue and apply it to 5 down here, and moral disengagement and apply it to 4. So it's a crisscross, as I described before. Each ethical perspective gets applied to one area of correctional law, and we'll talk about that again here in a second when we talk about the outline that you're going to use. I want to talk a little bit about what it means to apply an ethical perspective. When you apply an ethical perspective, you're going to demonstrate how the perspective, the content of the perspective, pertains to a key piece of law in a given area. Now, you don't have to apply the perspective to to every piece of law in the entire area. That would be too big. You have to pick one thing. So, for instance, if you are going to apply, let's say, consequentialism to prisoner First Amendment rights, in other words, your crisscross here is number 1 to number 2, all right? You would talk about how consequentialism applies to something like the Turner test, which is what courts use to evaluate prisoners' claims that their First Amendment rights, specifically their correspondence rights, have been violated. You could also, for example, use consequentialism to analyze or critically evaluate prisoners' claims regarding their religious freedoms here under the First Amendment, under RLUIPA, right? The Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Acts. Another example, you could use, for example, moral disengagement theory to help us critically evaluate and understand a particular area of community corrections law. So, for instance, the law regarding the searches, warrantless searches of people who are on probation or parole. And so you're going to pick a particular area of law, particular legal issue that we have talked about in these different areas, and you're going to critically evaluate it through the lens of one of these perspectives. By way of another example, let's say you picked regularianism, and you're on that one. And to illustrate the application of regularianism, you want to use the Eighth Amendment. And so perhaps what you would do is you would use the law regarding use of force against prisoners, and you would apply regularianism to understand that legal issue. That's what this assignment is about. It's getting you to focus on a particular legal issue from each one of these areas and to critically analyze that issue or that piece of law, whether it's a case or a statute or whatever, using the perspective here, the ethical perspective. So what I want you to do when you go through this, I want you to analyze the piece of law, the particular legal issue that you pick. I want you to do that from the standpoint of both prisoners as well as prison staff. So in other words, here, this last part where we're talking about in this paragraph here, how would, from the standpoint of regularianism applied to use of force issues on grounds of the Eighth Amendment, how would prisoners view this? How would they evaluate regularianism? How would prison staff see the world? So I want you to be able to see the world from different points of view. That's what I'm after here, and that's what you should be able to talk about from the standpoint of both prisoners and prison staff. So here's how you organize your presentation. You can literally organize your PowerPoint slides, according to the way that I've got this listed here. What you're going to do is you are going to first talk about consequentialism, and you can then talk about, under consequentialism, which legal area from 1 through 5 above you're going to be talking about. So in other words, if you're using consequentialism, let's say you're going to apply that to a legal issue here from Area 3. So you're going to tell me down here, okay, I'm going to work in legal Area 3. Now you're going to tell me what the key case or the statute is in Area 3. So, maybe out of Area 3, what you're going to do is you're going to look at the issue of racial discrimination under the 14th Amendment, or you're going to look at the self-incrimination rights of prisoners as covered in that unit, whatever it is you're picking to apply it to. You're going to tell me why the case or the statute is key. You're going to describe it to me. You're going to talk about, for instance, the self-incrimination law that's been handed down, or the racial discrimination law that's been handed down, a case like Johnson versus California, and then you're going to apply consequentialism to that case. Then you're going to go to regularianism, and you're going to talk about regularianism. That's your legal area, and you're going to tell me, okay, what legal area am I, or your ethical perspective. So what legal area am I going to apply regularianism to? Since we just used for consequentialism number 3, we can't use that one, so maybe we're going to use prisoner access to the courts for the next one here, regularianism. And perhaps what we want to do is use regularianism to evaluate the Prison Litigation Reform Act. So you're going to give me a brief description of the Prison Litigation Reform Act, and then you're going to apply regularianism to it. And you're going to do the same thing for the rest of these different areas. So if you have any questions at all on how to do this, the thing to do is to ask me, and I'll be happy to try to explain it to you either through email or over the phone if any of this is unclear to you. But this is what we're looking for in a 15 to 20 minute presentation. So, you know, a good rule of thumb here, since you have 5 areas, consequentialism, regularianism, deontology, virtue, and moral disengagement, that's 5. A good rule of thumb here would be to go about 4 minutes or so on each one, 3 to 4 minutes on each one. So this is not something that's extremely lengthy. If you devoted 5 minutes to each one of these areas here, you'd have a total of 25 minutes. So you know, you don't even have to go 5 minutes. You're just literally going to tell me the legal area and the key case that you have picked. You're going to tell me why the case or the statute, the piece of law that you have picked is key, why it's important. That's pretty easy to summarize. Most of your time is going to be telling me how consequentialism actually applies to the case, or how regularianism applies to the case or the statute. So that's how this works. There are some other guidelines here. You're going to prepare the thing using your own words. You don't want to read or plagiarize any part of it. Any material that you borrow from other sources must be completely referenced at the end of your PowerPoint presentation. On a references page, you can use slides to do that, or just copy if you want to from a Word file, whatever you want to do. You have to use direct quotes very sparingly. Anytime you do use direct quotations from a written source, you need page numbers of that quotation included. So again, the idea is to paraphrase in your own words rather than quoting, and avoid errors of punctuation, grammar, and so forth. And then there's instructions here for how you would go about preparing, step-by-step instructions for how you would go about preparing and posting your presentation. All of this stuff is included right here. If you go to our course home page and you go down here to the presentation assignment, click on that tab, you get what we just been looking at, the assignment itself, and then you have here a link for actually submitting the thing at the end. So that's what we're after. Again, if any of this stuff here in this outline confuses you and you're not sure exactly what you're supposed to be doing, let me know or Lou Martin know, and she'll talk with me and we'll try to clarify it for you. But again, your presentation should be 15 to 20 minutes in length total, which means somewhere between 3 and 4 minutes literally on each one of these areas. So you're talking about a slide or two on each one of these areas, and then you're going to move on down and finish out the assignment. So that's what we're looking for. It's due May 5th, 10 o'clock p.m., worth 50 points. Again, don't hesitate. I'm more than happy to try to help you if you have any questions.